Thank you very much. My name is Umaru Fofana. I'm from Sierra Leone. I'm president of the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists. Actually, some of what I had intended to say has been said, except that I honestly don't see any trouble with AFMD being a part of this new network. And if I could probably go a bit beyond that, I would say that if the AFMD, I'm not sure how long it's been in existence for, because, I mean, to be honest, I've been involved quite a lot in terms of media development, media advocacy, but to be honest, I only came to know about AFMD not long ago, and I have this, I hope it is paranoia, but I have this fear that we tend to, more often than not, limit Africa-wide media issues to South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria. And I think this is not very fair to the not too large countries on the continent. I mean, the fact that AFMD has been there for I'm not sure how many years, and having been in media advocacy for quite some time now, and I only came to know about it a few weeks ago, is probably an indictment that AFMD has not probably bothered to go beyond the scope in which it was when it was established. And I think the earlier we begin to address those smaller countries on the continent, the better. They also face the same problems that the big countries on the continent face, particularly in terms of the operations of the media in these countries. They need development, they need training, they need advocacy, they need independence, just so that we are able to do the same job, namely holding our leaders to account. And I hope the new network, if or when it is eventually set up, would have this in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Umaru. Edit. And then Rashid.
Thank you once again, Gabriel. With respect to Jeanette, I'm a bit surprised that she can't see the difference, because I can see the difference very clearly from the concept paper before me. Jeanette and I were the initial representatives of Africa on the GFMD when it was founded in 2004. And the AFMD was born out of GFMD. GFMD has a very defined membership, and it has also very clear mandate, which is essentially policy advocacy. From what I see from the concept paper, the mandate of this proposed network is not just policy advocacy, if at all there's going to be a policy advocacy component. If you look at the objectives, they are much broader. GFMD and therefore AFMD also has membership that is essentially NGOs and professional associations, and specifically it excludes state entities. And I see from here that membership includes state broadcasters, for instance. And although I still have questions about clarity of membership in this concept paper, it's not clear to me whether there will be individual members, but again, GFMD, AFMD don't have individual members. They must be organizational members, institutional members. So when you, and then the other question, of course, is, I mean, how much independence can we have if we decide that this network should be AFMD? Since 2008, I've stepped down from the steering committee of the GFMD, so I may have missed something, but from my understanding, there are two people representing Africa on the GFMD governance framework, and that's Gabriel and Jeanette, with an alternate member who I believe is David Makari at the moment. Now, if we want to decide here that we need to have a different governance arrangement, how does that fit into the AFMD, GFMD framework? It will be impossible for us. So we would essentially be a media network that is controlled by GFMD, and therefore limiting the possibilities that we can make of this network. So there's a whole range of issues which I believe Jeanette is aware of, and that is why I said I was surprised that she couldn't see the difference, because again, GFMD is very concerned with a very narrow focus in relation to media, which is media development. It doesn't deal with all the broader issues of media that I assume that this network would be dealing with, in terms of also bringing together all of the critical stakeholders. So I think they're vastly different. Of course, That's not to say that we must have two networks, but I see that there is a lot of difference between what is being proposed and what already exists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I am not sure if we should be responding by now after the 5 interventions, or do we take more? We take more. We take more.
I'd like to respond to that.
Okay. Okay. So, Amen Sissé.
Je parle français.
Oui, vous venez du Mali, donc le français.
Merci Baglo. Moi je vais parler français. Je crois que, en fait, j'avais levé la main, mais je veux parler moins parce que mes prédécesseurs ont dit beaucoup de choses. Moi je crois que cette initiative, elle est très heureuse. Par rapport à l'existence, c'est déjà bien. C'est vrai que moi je parle au nom de TAEF, du Forum africain des éditeurs. Je suis avec mon collègue Gambien. Mais je crois que nous adhérons à ça. Je crois que ce n'est pas une structure de trop, mais c'est une structure complémentaire. C'est ma vision des choses. Je crois que c'est la vision de TAEF aussi. C'est qu'au niveau du... Moi, je suis d'accord avec la proposition que vous faites sur le draft d'introduction pour nous permettre de comprendre. Je crois que c'est un draft bien fait. Et sur les adhésions, je crois que les adhésions, c'est vraiment un large panel qui est là. Mais je crois que le POMNET va être beaucoup plus une structure d'expertise. Et si elle joue son rôle d'expertise, au niveau du fonctionnement et des objectifs, il faut que ce soit très clair. Il ait beaucoup plus un rôle de renforcement des capacités. Si la FND, l'AMI ou le GFND ont donné naissance à cette structure, elle doit avoir une capacité de pouvoir renforcer les capacités des journalistes, de pouvoir avoir un rôle, je parle sous votre contrôle, Gabriel, un rôle d'observatoire auprès de l'Union africaine, ce que l'IGAO joue auprès de la CEDEAO, ou bien la FIGE auprès de grandes structures qui ont aidé beaucoup les médias à se développer dans certains domaines. Et PAMNET va être une espèce de réseau très large qui pourrait faire des dossiers de presse, qui pourrait faire des communiqués de presse, qui peuvent aider les médias africains à avoir la vision africaine du monde, de notre développement et à tout moment, ils peuvent être dans l'actualité, dans la mouvance du développement africain. Je me dis que c'est un peu ça. Sinon, sur les membres, les modalités d'adhésion, ça c'est bien. Maintenant, il faut être beaucoup plus précis dans les objectifs et beaucoup plus précis dans la manière de fonctionnement, et il pourrait jouer son rôle d'expertise et de renforcement de capacité au niveau des autres structures qui sont beaucoup plus larges qu'elles dans leur vision. Merci.
Merci, Amaï. Rachid?
Thank you. I'm Rashid from the Freedom of Expression Institute. Just several comments. I think, firstly, what is important is that our discussion here and our debate here is not about what we're being named. It's not about the name of it. It's actually a whole new structure that we need to consider. So I'm sensitive to the arguments against another structure, just willy-nilly starting another structure. But it is also the first time that I'm grappling with this. And in some respects, yes, I can actually see the need for another network. If I can get just clarity on other things, such as, for instance, the AFMD. I would see something like the Pan-African Network as having narrower objectives but a broader scope. So in other words, where it is objective is mainly to facilitate the interaction and the links and the connection with the AU in a very formalized manner. And therefore, the other networks feeding into the Pan-African Network in that respect. So in that respect, it has a narrow objective, but it has a broad scope in that all other networks, from media owners to journalists to development organizations and whatever, can come together in the Pan-African Network to facilitate and put various demands or concerns or whatever that can then filter through to the AUC in a structured manner or a very formalized manner. So in that respect, it has a narrow objective and but broader scope. And then the other question is just the makeup of the AFMD. So for instance, is the AMI part of the AFMD, is the African Editors Forum part of the AFMD, and so forth, and all the other organizations that were listed, because if they are not, then yes, then it does beg the question for a network that can then encompass all these, and hence the much more narrower objective but broader scope. And finally, and then it also just calls around the question of membership, where an organization like PAMNet, the Pan-African Network, I would see then as quite strictly organizationally based. An organizationally based organization. So in other words, only organizations or networks, not individual organizations, but networks make up the network, the Pan-African Network. So in other words, an individual media organization doesn't belong to PAMNet, but the individual organization belongs to another network of some sort, either the media owners network, the journalists network, or the educational institutions network, and then they belong to PAMNet, and that is how it feeds into PAMNet, and that is how it is of a different nature and structure, PAMNet. Okay.
Thank you, Rashid. You could see Henry and brother from Taxpayers in Kenya.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then our sister and Jean-Pierre. Yeah. So Eric, yeah. And then Oriela.
Okay, thanks so much. My name is Henry Minor. I work with Article 19 in the East African office. I think I appreciate that this discussion is getting bolder and candid with process and where we want to go. But I think Jeanette has created some confusion in procedural issues that I want to begin by saying, perhaps to apologize to Gabriel that when he asked us to look at the program and make amendments, that we did not see where he was coming from. My first question is that it is not AFMD concept note. That's a procedural misnomer we've already gotten into. That this concept note is a concept that Gabriel was mandated to develop, not as a member of AFMD, but the group that picked him in Addis Ababa picked him as a representative of the team that was there. So either Gabriel and Jeanette have taken their previous hat and wanted to define the whole of this process from that without taking cognizance that it was not on the basis of the leadership that they had that they were given this mandate. And procedurally, that's where our problem has begun. So I would want us, Jeanette and Gabriel, kindly put this other hat behind you first, and then we can begin to move forward and see what are the issues. Why I'm saying put them behind is that it helps us, it would help us to understand what have been the gains or challenges AFMD has had in relation to the AU, if at all, and how do we, with that understanding, create a framework that would be able to undo those challenges. So we are not creating two networks, but we are learning from previous networks that have been in existence, from previous engagements with AU, and moving forward as a continent. And I appreciate your concern that we can no longer do statements as a way of engaging with AU. AU is an African body that gains its sovereignty from the people of Africa. And we have said we will be there to engage with them. And this is the mechanism we are creating as media organizations to engage. So that's one thing about the procedural things. I would like to echo the last speaker's argument about membership. And I think That's the only positive thing that I see in this concept.